Saint Anger. Oh boy, here we go. Considering today is Friday the 13th, I've had a bit of bad luck today, and now we continue that bad luck with this little dandy here. So anyway, this album goes into a much different sound than what we've expected off of the last two albums, Load and Reload, which went to a more like hard rock blues sort of approach, just a little bit heavier. Um, Here it's a much different sound. Bob Rock is still the producer at this time, and a lot of stuff has happened in between Load and Reload. In between the Load and Reload duo and this album's release here. Jason Newsted left the band like a couple of years before this album even saw the light of day because he wanted to pursue Echo Brain and eventually Newsted, which is in his new project now. In fact, they actually released a pretty kick-ass album this year. But anyway, I can't talk about the good stuff right now. I have to deal with this shit here. So, after Newsted left the band, I guess the band members of Metallica were kind of spinning out of control. James Hetfield had to check himself into drug or alcohol rehabilitation or something, so I think he was barely able to make it to the studio to record this album, and whenever he did, it was only for like a couple of hours, like each day or something. That's just what I've heard. So yeah, as a result of this band basically spiraling out of control, one other thing that happened was the Napster event, which definitely caused a lot of controversy and must have added to the stress level of this band during that 6-year period in between Load, Reload, and Saint Anger. Saint Anger, unlike Load and Reload, goes into, you could say, a bit heavier of an approach. Not quite like the Master of Puppets Ride the Lightning days or anything like that, but it definitely has more of those elements in this album, although it takes on a bit more of like a modern metal approach. You could say more of like a new metal approach, even though when this album was released, new metal is basically walking out the door, so it's not like they could really cash off of that movement by this point, considering it was waning, but I guess they just wanted to go for like a more modern, more stripped down, raw approach, which was unhinged in how like angry it was. But let's check the musical content itself and see how it holds up. So this album starts off with Frantic, which is easily like the most accessible song on this entire album, and the best song in the album. And it actually keeps my interest, maintains it pretty well. So pretty decent opener. And unfortunately, this is basically where much of the good stuff ends. Saint Anger, the title track, comes up after that, and while there are some decent parts here and there, this entire song overall is pretty clusterfucked. And by the time it gets to the middle, that's where I start to, and I've actually pinpointed this one part where the riffs kind of get a little quiet, and then all of a sudden it goes into like this extended, like instrumental, just jam, or if that's what you call it. It just really goes into like this repetitive beat. It just keeps on going and going and going. James Hetfield's just blithering something away in the background, and this is basically where I pinpointed that this album was only going to go downhill from here. Very repetitive, very boring. There's not really much to say. It keeps getting more tedious the more you go on. Some Kind of Monster, then Dirty Window, then Invisible Kid. I was already praying for this album to end already. I was basically laughing my ass off, just like laughing like, just stop already. I can't really show you right now. I'd only have to show you if I'm listening to the album in my headphones, which you kind of don't want to see, really. I couldn't even make it past the Memory Remains, which, or no, not the Memory Remains, the Unnamed Feeling. I always get those names mixed up for some reason, but, like, by the time this song gets to the Unnamed Feeling, which is the ninth song off of this album, I was like, that's it, I'm done, because, Shoot Me Again, Invisible Kid, all these crappy, just repetitive, boring, tedious shit songs were playing before, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I had to stop it right at the Unnamed Feeling, and I've listened to the next two songs after that, like on other occasions. Purifies God Awful. All Within My Hands just gets very deranged and just clusterfucked. Part of that clusterfuck deranged feeling comes from James Hetfield's vocals because mostly because they didn't actually refine his voice or anything, so they just let him just yelp out any strange fucked up noise that he could come up with, like and you hear that all throughout the album, like songs like The Unnamed Feeling, Some Kind of Monster, where he's just like, some kind of monster. He's just making these crazy fucked up noises, which you kind of don't know what to feel. It's just bizarre. It's just, I think that's supposed to add to the effect of unhinged anger, which I know that's what they're trying to go for, but it just comes off very strange, and you don't know really what to feel, whether you should be scared for James or to laugh your ass off or something. And his voice hardly does anything to really engage the listener to keep on going, because he sounds like most of the time just as boring as the music does. No matter how angry he sounds, no matter how twisted and like rawr he comes across as, he does nothing to make this music more engaging. He just says stuff like "protector, infector, dar dar dar," and it's just as repetitive, nonsensical, and shitty as the music surrounding it. So he really does nothing to help it. Lars apparently must have taken cooking lessons and gotten high while in the studio, because for some reason he decided to replace his drum kit with some pots and pans that were lying around from his cooking lessons, so whatever floats his boat or something. Dun. And Kirk Hammett's not even given a chance to spice things up a bit. Poor Kirk Hammett's just lying around in the background, just going along with this shit he has to do. He's not given a chance to shine or anything, because if he could write a solo for just at least one of these songs, he could give it a chance to make it more lively. I've heard he actually added guitar solos like whenever they're playing these songs live, so that could have fucking helped. And sorry for the sudden light change. It's getting really dark, so yeah, it's pretty much dusk by this point. So yeah, keep this room well lit and all. The drop C tuned riffs that you hear throughout this album are basically as close as you get to the actual creative backbone that supports this thing. I know they're trying to be all uber heavy and angry, but if you're just heavy and angry and you don't have like any actual heart or drive or passion or just giving a shit, period, then your anger, your heaviness, no matter how fast and heavy you're playing those riffs, they mean nothing to me. So, too bad. This album is pretty much like a raging beast knocked out from chloroform. It's just knocked out cold. Sure, it may be angry and heavy sounding and fast and stuff like that, but when you have no actual creative drive behind what you're doing, when you have no actual passion behind any of the ideas on here, you just continue on with the same riff over and over and over until you get tired of it. It just really shows that this album has no blood running through its veins. It's creatively inept. For a band that wanted to supposedly return to their roots, this is a very uninspired attempt at doing so. If only they had, actually fleshed out their ideas and actually given us something more to offer as opposed to just running for the same idea again and again and again. Instead of writing like bland, stupid riffs for a song like Invisible Kid, why don't you actually put a little more thought and effort into what you're writing instead of repeating the same thing again? Like I keep saying, but that's what this album keeps saying, so I might as well just keep saying what this album keeps saying. Anyway, that's really all I have to say about this album. Yeah, this is a piece of shit, alright. I couldn't even finish it the whole way through. And to think that this isn't even the worst album in Metallica's discography. I mean, my god. How much lower could they get from this point? It's just pretty crazy. This is basically bordering on like latter day Jeff Tate era Queensryche. It's pretty fucking bad. Um, the thing is, I've got nothing. I'm just gonna have to continue on. Unfortunately, it does get a little bit better before it gets a whole hell of a lot worse. So consider this next review calm before the storm, if you will. Anyway, let's head out.